From the mean streets of a post-war city to the absolute pinnacle of global power, how did one boy with no connections become the world's most talked-about leader? Uncover the story of Vladimir Putin's rise, and to ensure you never miss another compelling English story. Subscribe now and ring that notification bell for our weekly lessons. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin was born on October 7, 1952. He was born in a city called Leningrad, which we now know as St. Petersburg in Russia. He was the youngest of 3 children, but sadly, his 2 older brothers passed away before he was even born. This meant that he grew up as the only child of his parents, Maria Ivanovna Putina and Vladimir Spiridonovich Putin. His family lived in a very small apartment. It was not like the apartments many of us know today, with separate bedrooms and a private kitchen. No, this was an apartment in an old building called a communal flat. Can you imagine that it means you have to share one kitchen and one bathroom with many other families? That is how little Vladimir grew up. In those days, there was almost no privacy. If you wanted to use the toilet, you might have to stand in a line and wait for your turn. The kitchen was almost always crowded with different families trying to cook their meals at different times. Sometimes the smells of all the different foods from other families would fill the small apartment. But Vladimir's family did not complain. They were used to living this way. It was normal for many families in Russia after the Second World War. Leningrad, the city where Putin was born, had suffered so much during that war. The city was almost completely destroyed, and people were still recovering from the terrible things they had seen. Food was often difficult to find, and life was very tough. Putin's father had been badly injured in the war, and his mother worked very hard every day to take care of the family. Vladimir's parents loved him very deeply, but they were also very strict. They taught him the importance of working hard and to never ever give up, no matter how difficult life became. Little did they know that their small, skinny boy would one day grow up to lead their entire country. As a child, Putin wasn't very big or strong. In fact, he was quite small and thin compared to the other kids in his neighborhood. Because of this, some of the bigger boys tried to bully him. They would pick on him. But Vladimir was not the kind of boy to cry or run away. Instead, he made a decision. He decided he would become strong so that no one could ever bother him again. At the age of 12, he started learning Judo and another Russian martial art. He was incredibly dedicated. He practiced every single day. He wasn't just fighting to win matches in a competition. He was fighting to build his own confidence and his own discipline. Over time, he became very good at Judo, so good that he earned a black belt. Even today, as a world leader, he still loves Judo. He believes it helped him learn how to stay calm and think clearly, especially in very tough situations. While other children were dreaming of becoming doctors or engineers or teachers, Vladimir had a very unique dream. He wanted to become a spy. Yes, a real spy, just like in the movies he watched. He was fascinated by the stories he heard about the KGB, which was the Soviet Union's intelligence agency. At that time, the KGB was one of the most powerful and secret organizations in the world, and young Putin wanted to be a part of it. But becoming a KGB officer was not an easy thing to do. You needed to be very smart, very disciplined, and highly educated. Putin knew this, so he focused all his energy on his studies. At first, he wasn't the best student in his school, but he worked incredibly hard to improve his grades. He also learned to speak German, a skill that would become very important for him later in his career. Life in that communal flat was never easy. Every morning, Vladimir's mother would wake up very early to prepare breakfast in the shared kitchen. She would have to wait for her turn to use the stove while other women cooked for their families. Sometimes there were small arguments about whose turn it was. Putin would eat simple meals like bread with some butter and a cup of tea before heading off to school. After school, he would often help his mother with small jobs around the apartment. His family did not have a lot of money, so they could not afford luxuries like fancy toys or expensive clothes. But Vladimir didn't really care about those things. He was focused on his dream, his goal of one day becoming a KGB officer. After finishing high school, Putin was accepted into Leningrad State University, one of the best universities in the entire city. He chose to study law. This was a very smart choice because the KGB often looked for and recruited people who had a background in law. While he was at the university, Putin stayed quiet and focused on his work. He was not the loud or popular type of student, but his professors noticed him. They saw his sharp mind and his incredible discipline. Then, after graduating in 1975, his dream finally came true. He was invited to join the KGB. For a small boy from a poor family who grew up in a shared apartment, this was a huge achievement. Imagine how that must have felt to finally wear the uniform of one of the most powerful intelligence agencies in the world. Putin started his new career as a secret agent working behind the scenes to protect his country. Putin's first big assignment took him to East Germany. This was during the Cold War, a very tense time when the world was divided between two superpowers, the Soviet Union and the United States. Putin worked quietly. His job was to gather information and learn about the world outside of Russia. While he was in East Germany, he perfected his German language skills and learned how to handle very complex and difficult situations. Being a spy was not an easy job, but Putin loved the challenge. He was learning lessons that one day would help him lead his country. This is just the beginning of Vladimir Putin's incredible journey. From a small, crowded apartment in Leningrad to the secret halls of the KGB, his early life already shows us how much determination and hard work can change a person's destiny. Vladimir Putin was doing well as a KGB officer in East Germany. But in 1989, something enormous happened that changed his life and the world forever. The Berlin Wall fell. Soon after that, the Soviet Union, the country he had sworn to protect, began to weaken. People were unhappy with the government, and life in Russia became very hard for everyone. Putin realized that the world he knew was changing, and it was changing fast. He returned to his home city, Leningrad, which was soon renamed St. Petersburg in 1990. In 1991, he made a big decision. He left the KGB. He felt it was time to start a new chapter in his life. It was time for him to do something different, something bigger. When Putin left the KGB, he didn't immediately become a famous leader. He started with a small job at Leningrad State University, the same university where he had studied law. He worked as an assistant to one of his old professors, helping with paperwork and administrative tasks. But soon a new opportunity knocked on his door. A man named Anatoly Sobchak, who was the mayor of St. Petersburg, needed someone smart and trustworthy to work with him. Putin got the job. This was his very first step into the world of politics. Putin wasn't a politician yet, but he was a very fast learner. He worked hard always behind the scenes, organizing projects, handling important tasks, and making sure the city ran as smoothly as possible. People started to notice him. They saw that he was quiet, but very effective. Putin was not flashy or loud like some other politicians. He didn't talk too much, but when he did speak, people listened. He became known for solving problems quickly and for staying calm even in very stressful situations. One of his most important qualities was loyalty. He stayed loyal to his boss, Anatoly Sobchak, even when things became difficult. This loyalty made people trust him. They knew that he was not the kind of person who would betray others for his own personal gain. In 1996, Sobchak lost his position as mayor, and Putin's job in St. Petersburg came to an end. Many people thought this was the end of his political career. But Putin did not give up. He packed his things and moved to Moscow, the capital of Russia, to start fresh. In Moscow, Putin began working inside the Russian government. He started with small jobs at first, but he always gave his best effort. His ability to stay calm, solve problems, and keep things under control impressed the people in charge. Soon, Boris Yeltsin, who was the president of Russia at that time, noticed him. Yeltsin was looking for someone reliable, someone he could trust to help manage the country, and Putin seemed like the perfect choice. In 1999, something huge happened. President Yeltsin made Vladimir Putin the Prime Minister of Russia. This was a very big deal. The Prime Minister is like the second most powerful person in the country. But Russia was going through a very tough time. The economy was weak, there was corruption everywhere, and people were losing hope. Putin had a lot of work to do, but he did not back down. He showed people that he was serious about making changes. He introduced strict new policies to fight corruption and worked hard to make the government more organized and efficient. Slowly, people started to believe in him. Then, on December 31st, 1999, on the very last day of the year, something completely unexpected happened. Boris Yeltsin went on television and announced that he was resigning as president. And guess who he chose to replace him? Vladimir Putin. It was a surprise for everyone in Russia and around the world. Many people didn't know much about Putin back then, but Yeltsin trusted him to take over the country. On the first day of the new millennium, January 1st, 2000, Vladimir Putin became the acting president of Russia. Putin did not waste any time. He started working immediately to solve Russia's many problems. He focused on improving the economy, reducing crime, and making the country stronger again. One of his first big challenges was dealing with Chechnya, a region in Russia that was fighting for its independence. There were many violent conflicts happening there. Putin took a very firm stand. He wanted to show the world that Russia was a strong nation and would not give up its territory. His strong actions made him very popular among many Russians who were tired of their country looking weak on the world stage. They saw Putin as a leader who could bring back order and strength to Russia. In March of 2000, Russia held a presidential election, and Putin won with a large number of votes. He officially became the president of Russia. This was the beginning of a new era for the country. Putin was young, energetic, and very determined to make Russia a global power once again. He introduced new policies to boost the economy, improve healthcare, and modernize the military. As Putin became more powerful, he also became much richer. Today, he is known for having a luxurious lifestyle. It is reported that he owns expensive jets, yachts, and luxury cars. He even has a personal collection of watches that is said to be worth millions of dollars. But Putin very rarely talks about his personal wealth. He prefers to keep his personal life very private. Some people criticize him for this, but others admire his focus on his work rather than on showing off his money. Putin had married a woman named Lyudmila Shkrebneva in 1983. The couple had 2 daughters, Maria and Katerina, but they kept their family life extremely private. Putin did not want his children to be in the public eye. He said he wanted to protect them and give them a normal life. In 2013, Putin and Lyudmila announced their divorce. They explained that it was a mutual decision and that they had simply grown apart over the years. Since then, Putin's personal life has been a topic of much speculation. There are rumors that he has a new partner, but he has never confirmed anything publicly. As a leader, Putin has faced his share of controversies. Some people accuse him of being too strict or too controlling. Others criticize his government for limiting freedom of speech. But despite all the criticism, Putin has always stayed focused on his goals. He believes that a strong leader must make tough decisions, even if those decisions are unpopular. Putin's main goal has always been to make Russia a powerful and respected country in the world. He works tirelessly to achieve this even after more than 2 decades in power. His story shows us that hard work, discipline, and determination can take you very far in life. In the early 2000s, Putin focused on fixing Russia's broken systems. The economy was in terrible shape. People were struggling to find jobs and to feed their families. Factories were closed. Roads were in poor condition, and corruption was a huge problem. Putin started by introducing strict policies to bring a sense of order back to the country. He worked on collecting unpaid taxes, reforming businesses to make them more efficient, and attracting investment from other countries. Slowly but surely, Russia's economy began to grow. Oil and gas became Russia's most powerful industries under his leadership. This brought a lot of money into the country, and Putin used this money to rebuild Russia. Putin also knew that a strong country needed a strong military. After years of neglect, Russia's army was in a terrible condition. Soldiers did not have proper training, and their equipment was old and outdated. Putin began investing huge amounts of money in modernizing Russia's military. He introduced advanced weapons, better training programs, and new technology. Over time, Russia once again became one of the most powerful military forces in the world. This was a big step in showing everyone that Russia was back on the global stage. Putin understood the power of information. He knew that controlling the media was an important way to shape public opinion. During his presidency, he took steps to make sure that most of the major television networks in Russia were aligned with his government. This was a controversial move, but Putin believed it was necessary to keep the country stable. He argued that too much freedom in the media could lead to chaos and disorder. Whether people agreed with him or not, his strategy worked to strengthen his control over the country. When Putin became president, Russia was largely controlled by a group of extremely wealthy businessmen known as the oligarchs. These oligarchs had gained massive wealth and power after the Soviet Union collapsed. Many of them used their money to influence politics and to control government decisions. Putin did not like this. He believed that no one should be more powerful than the government. He started to take action against the oligarchs, forcing many of them to leave the country or to give up their businesses. This was a risky thing to do because these men were very influential. But Putin's determination paid off. He made it very clear that in his Russia, no one was above the law. As president, Putin also worked hard to rebuild Russia's relationships with other countries. He traveled all over the world, meeting with leaders from the United States, China, Europe, and the Middle East. Putin had a unique style in these meetings. He was direct, confident, and always seemed to be in control. His background as a KGB officer helped him to understand people and situations better than most leaders. He knew when to be friendly, and he knew when to be firm. This made him a respected and sometimes feared figure on the global stage. By the mid-2000s, Putin had become one of the most powerful men in the world. And with that power came luxury. Putin is said to own multiple palaces, private jets, and even a super yacht. One of his most famous properties is a huge mansion on the Black Sea, which people often call Putin's Palace. He also has a love for expensive cars and watches. His watch collection alone is said to be worth millions of dollars. But despite all this wealth, Putin keeps his personal life very, very private. He rarely talks about his family or his relationships. Putin is also famous for his strongman image. He loves to show the world that he is tough and fearless. Over the years, he has been photographed doing many adventurous activities. We have seen pictures of him riding a horse without a shirt in the cold of Siberia, diving underwater to explore old shipwrecks, flying fighter jets and helicopters, and practicing Judo, the martial art he mastered as a young boy. These images are carefully planned. They are designed to show Putin as a leader who is strong, active, and ready to defend his country at any cost. One of Putin's greatest skills is balancing allies and enemies. He knows how to work with countries like China and India to build strong partnerships, while at the same time standing up to powerful nations like the United States. In 2014, Putin made one of his most controversial moves. He annexed Crimea, a region that was part of Ukraine. This action shocked the world and led to heavy sanctions against Russia. But inside Russia, many people supported Putin's decision. They saw it as a bold step to protect Russia's interests. Being a leader for so many years has not been easy for Putin. He has faced a lot of criticism for limiting freedom of speech and for cracking down on protests. Many people accuse him of being too authoritarian. But Putin believes that his style of leadership is necessary to keep Russia stable and strong. He often says that a strong leader must make difficult decisions even if they are unpopular. While Putin is known for his strict and disciplined personality, people who are close to him say that he also has a softer side. He loves animals, especially dogs. He has been given several dogs as gifts from other world leaders, and he often spends time with them at his home. Putin is also a fan of classical music and enjoys playing the piano. These small details show us that even one of the most powerful men in the world has simple joys in his life. Putin's journey from a small apartment in Leningrad to the presidency of Russia is nothing short of inspirational. He has faced countless challenges, but he has always found a way to overcome them. His determination, his intelligence, and his ability to adapt have made him one of the most influential leaders of the 21st century. Vladimir Putin's life continued to evolve as he solidified his position as a global leader. With Russia becoming more powerful, Putin set his eyes on even larger goals. His focus wasn't just on strengthening Russia from the inside. It was about making the entire world recognize his country as a force to be reckoned with. But this part of Putin's journey wasn't just about victories. It was filled with challenges, controversies, and bold decisions that kept the world watching and talking. Putin is often called one of the most strategic leaders in modern history. He doesn't seem to make decisions quickly or based on emotion. He thinks about the long-term impact. One of his biggest strategies has been to create alliances with countries that share similar goals. For example, Putin has worked very closely with China to strengthen their economic ties. Together, they have launched massive projects like building new trade routes and energy pipelines. This partnership has helped Russia to rely less on Western countries. Another key strategy has been Russia's growing influence in the Middle East. Putin has supported leaders in countries like Syria, helping them to stay in power during very difficult times. This has made Russia a key player in the region. It gives Putin the power to negotiate with Western nations on more equal terms. In today's world, wars are not only fought with tanks and guns. Technology plays a major role, and Putin understands this better than almost anyone. Under his leadership, Russia has invested heavily in cyber technology. Russian hackers have become known as some of the most skilled in the world. This has given Russia a unique kind of power. It can influence global events without sending a single soldier. For example, there have been claims that Russian hackers interfered in the elections of other countries. While these accusations are very controversial, they show just how much influence Putin has gained through technology. One of Putin's greatest achievements in the eyes of many Russians is reviving a sense of national pride. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, many people in Russia felt embarrassed about their country. They believed that Russia was no longer strong or respected. Putin worked very hard to change this mindset. He launched huge projects to celebrate Russian history, culture, and achievements. He brought back grand military parades, built new museums, and even introduced laws to protect the Russian language. He often says, "A nation that forgets its history has no future." This belief has shaped many of his policies and has inspired millions of Russians to take pride in their country once again. Putin is also extremely disciplined when it comes to his personal health and routine. He starts his day with a healthy breakfast, which often includes things like quail eggs, cottage cheese, and fresh juice. After that, he reportedly swims for about an hour and exercises in his gym. This strict routine helps him stay fit and focused for the long days of work. Interestingly, while he has access to great luxury, Putin has sometimes been seen driving modest cars during official events. This is part of his public image as a leader who understands the daily struggles of ordinary people. One of Putin's boldest moves was creating the Eurasian Economic Union, or the EAEU. This organization brings together countries like Belarus, Kazakhstan, and Armenia to create a powerful economic bloc. The EAEU allows these member countries to trade freely with each other, which strengthens their economies and reduces their dependence on the West. Putin's goal is to create a system where Russia leads the way, offering an alternative to Western institutions. This move has helped Russia gain more influence in Central Asia and beyond, further cementing Putin's legacy as a visionary leader. While Putin has modernized many parts of Russia, he has also worked hard to protect its traditional values. He believes that Russian values are unique and should not be overly influenced by Western ideologies. For example, Putin has taken strong positions on topics like religion, family, and education. He has shown strong support for the Russian Orthodox Church, calling it an important part of the country's heritage. This has earned him respect from more conservative groups in Russia, though it has also sparked debates about the separation of church and state. Putin's ability to stay in power for so many years is a testament to his adaptability. He has faced economic crises, political scandals, and even global isolation. But no matter what challenges come his way, he always seems to find a way to bounce back. One of his secrets might be his ability to connect with ordinary Russians. He holds a special annual event called the Direct Line with Vladimir Putin, where citizens from all over the country can call in and ask him questions directly. This event shows people that he is not just a distant leader, but also someone who listens to the concerns of his people. As Putin's time as a leader continues, his legacy becomes more complex. Some people see him as a hero who saved Russia from collapse and restored its glory. Others view him as a controversial figure who has made bold and sometimes risky decisions. But regardless of different opinions, one thing is clear. Vladimir Putin's life is a story of resilience, determination, and a clear vision for his country. His journey from a poor childhood to the presidency of one of the world's most powerful nations is nothing short of remarkable. As we approach the final chapter of our story on Vladimir Putin's life, it is important to focus on the legacy he is building, a legacy that will be talked about for generations to come. Whether you love him or hate him, Putin's journey is proof that resilience, intelligence, and strategy can change the course of history. Putin's success as a leader often comes down to his ability to adapt. He is not someone who follows the same path forever. Instead, he analyzes situations, learns from them, and adjusts his strategies. This ability has allowed him to maintain his position of power for over 2 decades. When asked about his leadership style, Putin once said something like, "Leadership is not about staying in power, it's about staying relevant." This mindset has shaped many of his policies. He understands that for Russia to remain strong, it must evolve with the changing world while still holding on to its unique identity. Putin's focus has always seemed to be bigger than just Russia itself. He dreams of creating what is called a multipolar world. This is a world where no single country dominates all the others. He believes in giving smaller nations a voice and in challenging the global powers that try to control everything. To achieve this, Putin has invested heavily in building alliances. Russia's relationships with China, India, and many African nations are stronger than ever before. He has also supported countries that are struggling under Western sanctions, offering them trade deals and military assistance. Politics is often compared to a game of chess, and in this game, Putin is a grandmaster. He does not make moves based on emotion. He calculates every single step. Whether he is negotiating a peace deal or responding to criticism, Putin almost always remains calm and focused. One of his most famous moments came during a global summit where leaders of other powerful nations tried to corner him with accusations. Instead of losing his temper, Putin simply smiled and responded with facts and questions, turning the entire situation in his favor. This ability to stay composed under pressure is something that any aspiring leader can learn from. He once said that emotions are a luxury in politics. Putin knows that his time as president will not last forever. That is why he has spent years building what he hopes is a strong foundation for Russia's future. He has focused on a few key areas. The first is innovation and technology. Putin has encouraged young Russians to pursue careers in science, technology, and engineering. He believes that the future belongs to nations that lead in innovation. The second is education. Putin's government has worked to reform Russia's education system, trying to make it more accessible to students in rural areas. He often visits schools and universities to inspire the next generation of leaders. And the third is healthcare. Under his leadership, Russia has built new hospitals and tried to improve access to medical care, especially in remote parts of the country. Putin's message to his people is simple. Russia's strength lies in its people. If you invest in them, the country will thrive. Being a leader is not easy, and Putin's life is proof of that. He has faced endless criticism both at home in Russia and from other countries. There are constant debates about his policies, his decisions, and his style of leadership. Yet despite all the pressure, Putin never seems to let it affect him. He once said, "If you try to please everyone, you will lose yourself." A true leader, in his view, must stand by their principles even when the world disagrees. This belief has guided him through some of the most difficult moments of his career. Whether he is dealing with sanctions, international conflicts, or political opposition, Putin has shown the world that perseverance is key. What makes Putin so fascinating is not just his political career, but also the man behind the leader. He has a great love for adventure. He enjoys activities like horse riding, diving, and even piloting planes. These adventures show his fearless nature and his love for challenges. He also has an intellectual curiosity. Putin reads a lot, studying history, politics, and military strategy. He believes that knowledge is the ultimate weapon. As we conclude this story of Putin, let us focus on the lessons we can learn from his life. First, resilience matters. Life is full of challenges, but those who stay strong and learn to adapt can overcome anything. Second, think strategically. Don't rush into decisions. Take your time to analyze the situation and plan your steps carefully. Third, stay true to yourself. Leadership is not about pleasing everyone. It is about standing by your principles and your vision. And fourth, invest in growth. Whether it is your personal growth or professional growth, always try to improve yourself and the people around you. Vladimir Putin's journey from a small shared apartment in Leningrad to the world stage is a powerful story of determination, courage, and vision. His life reminds us that greatness is not about where you start. It is about how far you are willing to go. As we end this incredible story, I want you to remember that your own future is in your hands. If you dream big, work hard, and stay focused, there is no limit to what you can achieve. Thank you for listening. I look forward to sharing another story with you soon.